Welcome, everyone, to this RE Kickoff of Connections and Planning for Changing Times. We are so grateful that you are here with us today. And Natalie, would you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Nancy. My name is Natalie Briscoe. I'm the lead for the Southern region. I live in Austin, Texas. I am a multiracial, middle-aged woman. I have long, dark hair and dark eyes, olive skin, and today I'm wearing a blue shirt.
And Kathy.
I'm Kathy McGowan, and I have shoulder length gray hair, glasses, and a black shirt today. Happy to be with you.
And I'm Nancy Combs Morgan, blessed to be serving on the Southern Region team with these wonderful folk. I am an elder white woman with sort of frosty reddish hair, wearing maroon glasses and a pink shirt. And Natalie.
First of all, I just want to say I'm really grateful for the opportunity to talk about faith development and the dimensions of faith development. As always, I think it is the most important thing we do, which kicks off our mantra that we often say in the Southern region, which begins with faith development is all we do. And that means that every single thing, every moment we're together, every time we're engaged in worship together, anytime we are engaged in fellowship with one another, we are doing the work of faith development. And then the second part of that mantra is Unitarian Universalism is the religion that we teach. And we know we should be teaching Unitarian Universalism because, the churches up the street are not. We guarantee that that's true. And it's really our responsibility to teach to others what Unitarian Universalism is, both inside our congregations and outside. And finally, from Maria Harris in her book, Fashion Me a People, the third part of our mantra is the congregation is the curriculum, meaning our relationships, the congregation, the ways in which we gather together is the format for foundational curriculum that we use to teach Unitarian Universalism to one another. So we keep saying those words, faith development, and I just wanted to take a moment to talk about what faith development might mean, what those words might mean. So when we say faith, we are actually talking about the word trust. So English is the only language in which faith is not a verb. So in other languages, we would say, I faith that. I faith you, Nancy. I faith that you're going to show up. I faith that the sun is going to rise. I have faith in it. So when we're talking about faith development, we're talking about the ways in which trust is growing between and among us. And then that word development, one of the definitions that I love the most of development is unfurling. So we're looking at the ways in which trust unfurls among us, the ways in which it grows, the ways in which it can bloom in relationship with one another. So obviously we are concerned with the ways that Unitarian Universalists come to know and understand our living tradition through relationship. We no longer view faith development as something that happens individually in isolation, independent of its context. Instead, we are most concerned with the ways in which a person grows deeper in their relationship with other UU communities through our covenants and other expressions of our shared values. And of course, all relationships begin in this trust. Our first goal is to be communities who are trustworthy so that we can encourage faith development to happen naturally. The dimensions of faith development are really about how we come to know and rely upon our UU values and their expressions in our covenants and communities, and the ways in which we participate in the incarnation of those values, including building trust, which is at its foundation. Another key focus to UU faith development in the way that we've often thought about it in context of the dimensions is the focus on narrative. So stories are the way in which we pass our religion to each other and to new generations of Unitarian Universalists. Stories are the way in which we build and strengthen our UU culture and the way in which we intentionally may change it from time to time to be a more inclusive incarnation of beloved community. So this development, trust development, using narrative as a vehicle, it happens not in stages the way that we used to think of development happening. There is never a point at which we don't need to build trust or we don't need to hear stories. There is always a part of us that needs that. So we think more of faith development happening in a spiral or a set of nesting bowls, where as we travel through our lives, we continue to revisit parts of it where we need to build trust, where we need to hear narrative, and then where we can participate in building that trust and building those narratives. So in general, I just wanted to mention that there are 5 vehicles of faith development that we commonly see in a congregation. This is descriptive, not prescriptive. So I'm not saying if you don't have these in your congregation, please go make them happen, because all of these will need to happen in partnership with other ministries in your congregation. So the 5 offerings, the programmatic offerings that we normally see or would see in congregations that are vehicles for faith development in general are worship, religious education, justice making, small group ministry, and fellowship. And each of these programmatic offerings in a congregation is an opportunity to grow in relationship with each other and practice living into our covenants. To the end that we can incarnate our shared values, to the end that we can become trustworthy congregations, trustworthy beloved communities. And I just want to say everyone in the community needs these things. It is not that youth need religious education and adults need worship. Every single person in the congregation needs opportunities to grow in trust, to experience us as trustworthy, to hear our stories through worship, religious education, our justice making, small group ministry, and just being with one another in fellowship. In this way, we can focus on providing these opportunities in both cohort tailored groups and multi-generational whole church settings.
Thank you so much, Natalie. And we use a team approach and making sure that all of the themes that Natalie is lifting up really are incorporated into everything we do. So now thinking about the bigger, broader picture, we hope that before you have seen this video that you made a point to watch the roux of Unitarian Universalist gumbo. And so now I'm going to ask Kathy McGowan to share a bit more about that.
And a good roux takes time and attention to mix all these ingredients well, paying very close attention, making sure they aren't separated but incorporated very, very well. I love that metaphor because it works for the work that we do. We are constantly paying attention to how these ingredients are mixing together and making sure that we have a really positive base before we add our other fun, spicy ingredients. So let me just go through them briefly, specifically looking at our role as religious professionals and educators, lifting up a few things for you. So UU identity, I hope you all have a really good sense of what that is. I believe and trust in you that you do have a sense of UU identity. So I'm not going to linger a long time on that. It should be in everything we do. And as Natalie said earlier in this video, it is how we teach who we are as a people. Unitarian Universalism is how we are together. And so how we are together has often helped to develop in its own way and helped to be intentional about developing that is our use of covenant. So covenant really is at the key of our UU identity. So it's how we are together, as Maria Harris says, the congregation is the curriculum. It's how we are together, how we live a covenantal life in our congregation that really teaches us who we are as a people, a faith community of Unitarian Universalists. So that's all I think need to say about that at the moment, because I want to give us some time to move on to the spiritual deepening piece and the generosity piece. So for spiritual deepening, we all have an opportunity to go deeper into our own selves and develop ourselves as human beings, but there's something really special and unique about developing ourselves as a community. And this is something that is sorely lacking in the world. Every day I feel our sense of being with other people and our sense of being in community slipping away as a society in the United States where I live. So we as a congregation, we have a unique role to enhance our intentionality about how we're going to be together, keeping love at the center of everything that we do. So really, when I talk about spiritual depth, I'm talking about our spiritual depth in community, how we are together in community. As religious educators, it's our job as leaders, any leader in a congregation, be it a minister, religious educator, or any professional, the board, any of the key leadership to a congregation. Our roles as leaders is to always turn back to love, keeping love at the center along with our other values, and making sure that all the decisions we make, the programs we put in place are all centered around how we are going to create a better world, how we are putting our mission out into the world and living in that way. So as you know, as experiential learners, when we learn something and we do something together in community, the important part of an experiential learning is the so what. So we did this thing. Here's the thing we did. So what? It's the so what part that the religious educators can really play a key piece in helping our congregations do. When we do the so what part of any activity and any experience that we have, we are actually doing it in a covenantal way that creates a safer space so that people can go deeper with one another. This is spiritual deepening. Asking ourselves, why did we do that? What have we learned from that? An example might be a river cleanup. So if the congregation goes and does a river cleanup, and then you're all dirty and mucky at the end of the day, everybody goes home, there's really not time to process that event. So as a religious educator, perhaps you could have a session where it's a community building, fellowship building, meal component to it, having some fun. And then you do some spiritual deepening where you sit around and say, so we did this thing. Why did we do that? What was it like for you? When that happened, what happened inside of you? And these are questions you can ask if you frame them in a very general way, thinking specifically how you would be age appropriate to every age group in the room. You can ask a general question that hits the kindergartner and the 90-year-old in the room. So you can do it in a multi-generational way, or you could go into a classroom and have a specific, to middle schoolers, you're going to want to be very concrete. But ask them about their feelings. How did that feel? Remember when that person did that and the trash bag exploded all over the river? We just spent 20 minutes cleaning it up. What did you feel inside? What did your body do when that happened? So you can make it age appropriate or you can make it multi-generationally appropriate. But you're doing what did we learn? And by that, the implicit piece of that is what did we learn as Unitarian Universalists living our values in the world? We were out there living our values, and what did we get from that? What did we give and what did we get? So that's just an example of how you can help as a religious professional, the whole congregation go deeper into their own spirituality. I want to move on to generosity. This is one of my favorite things to talk about right now because I really believe generosity is going to save Unitarian Universalism, if I can be that bold, because it really is. And when I say generosity, sorry, I interrupt myself. When I say generosity, people automatically think time, talent, and treasure, because in many ways, that's what we've been trained to do. We want to share our talents. We want to get people to share our talents, our time, and our treasure, meaning money. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not excluding those three things, but I'm really talking about a generosity of spirit. As you can see, this is linked also to spiritual depth. So the generosity of spirit is what I'm talking about. How can we take what we have, the limited resources that we have, the limited time, the limited talent, the limited treasure, the limited capacity that people have to give, and be generous with what we have? It's so baked into a sense of generosity is also a sense of gratitude. It comes naturally together, because if we say, how can we be generous? We have to look at what we've got. And then automatically there becomes this sense of, I'm so lucky I have what I have. I'm so lucky I have a congregation to go to that shares my values. So there's an inherent sense of generosity. And I really think we can help them get from generosity to gratitude to humility. So humility is the other piece that I think if we help people go deeper in their generosity, will come out. Because if we are generous enough, we know that there is more and we only have what we have, but I'm going to appreciate what I have now. And I am not the answer. I don't have the answer. My small group is not the answer. We're going to have an impact, not by just our congregation, but by all of our congregations together, changing the world for something better. But I'm going to do what I can in my small sphere so that I can help as much as I can. So I think there's an underlying sense of we are part of something greater when we have a deep sense of generosity and gratitude. We know we're not alone. We know we can't do it all. It lets us know that we don't have to be saviors for the world. We can do our part with what we've got for our one small corner of the universe. So generosity, when you go deeper, is gratitude and humility in those things. So an example of where you might look to have a spirit of generosity, Nancy was sharing with me, instead of looking as a recruitment tool, instead of asking our people, we need you, we have this need we have to fill, what if we looked at our recruitment from a lens of generosity? And what if we said, this part of our mission, we feel like we could be more generous with this part of our mission. And we're trying to foster that generosity. And you seem to have the generosity of spirit that really matches with this missional piece of what we're trying to do with the religious education group. We're hoping that you can help us fulfill that mission and be more generous with this, whatever part of your mission that is. So it's flipping it from, it's still acknowledging there is a need. We need, but it's also saying it's coming from a place of we want to be more generous with Unitarian Universalism. And you fit that generosity piece that we can have. So I love that. One last thing I just want to say is, as leaders, you are helping everybody go deeper for wherever they are. That's faith development. Wherever they are, you are helping them to go deeper. And the way you do that as a religious professional is to meet them where they are. So there is no judgment there. It is a path. It is a place to go, but looking for opportunities is your unique role, is to help them be more generous, be more value-centered, keep love at the center, and let the unfurling, help the unfurling, giving the soil, the place to grow for this unfurling. And I keep saying, well, so many people think of faith development as a path, and that feels like it's a line moving forward. And our images of the unfurling and the nesting bowls is really important to me. And when we talk about spiritual depth and generosity and humility, it's because we want people to go deeper in themselves. So it's not some elevation of someplace we're headed. It's someplace deeper within our own selves that we really want to stay and keep love centered. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kathy. So, folks, we're going to stay in the kitchen. We're going to keep on thinking about that roux of Unitarian Universalism, gumbo. And what we're going to do is go into some applications. So we're going to push our sleeves up and really think about some direct ways that this can be applicable to you and your ministry as volunteers working with your religious education professionals. So here's something that's going to maybe feel counterintuitive. Here you are mapping out or planning for your congregation some of that spiritual deepening that Kathy and as well as Natalie was talking about. But in reality, you as a team need to be experiencing moments of small group ministry, even if it's 4 times a year, perhaps seasonal. gather with one another and really go deep about how is this speaking to your own faith development, your own understanding of what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist, what's making your heart open, what's challenging you. Because when you watch the Rue video, I'm hoping you heard from Kathy the importance that it's not just about being comforted in your faith, but there's also an element of being challenged as well. And then, and this is the fun part, when you think about mapping out your year or even revisiting that map for the year, perhaps in January or thereabouts, expand the liturgical ritual opportunities that are already present in your congregation. As Natalie was mentioning, the importance of ritual, narrative, all of these pieces are what bind you together in a Unitarian Universalist experience. So perhaps some of you had a backpack blessing. I hear from a lot of congregations in the Southern region, they have been doing this backpack blessing. What about making that more of an embodied experience as opposed to a one-off ritual? Perhaps next time, or even anchoring in the backpacks that have been blessed. This idea, actually, that I'm about to share was generated from the religious educator in Greenville, South Carolina, David Funderburk, who said, what about passport pals? What if there was an adult who was actually making sure that they were building relationship with a child and a youth? And that's a separate program, the Passport Pals, similar to how we did Secret Pals in past years. But if you added it to the backpack blessing, what if there was an adult reaching out to those children and youth in a regulated, screened, healthy manner, not just random adults, who were actually building relationship about what are you putting in your backpack? What is the one thing that really excites you about school? And then going further and thinking about different rituals and different things that we embody, especially for a story for all ages, we often sing from you I receive and to you I give. What if that was more of a multi-generational embodied moment where adults and children and youth were literally looking at one another or experiencing this on some level where they're naming that they actually are passing the peace when they express this from you I receive, to you I give, but also learning each other's names. You're going to hear that as an echoing refrain. So Kathy was just mentioning the idea about perhaps even thinking about things of like when we have recycling efforts or cleanup efforts, but what if, again, that anchor liturgical moment narrative in your congregational experience of something like a water in gathering, which many congregations and communities do, what if you again expanded it and made it much more multi-generational? What if there were reflections on the importance of the element of water at the next children's chapel? What if you were to invite those folks, those Unitarian Universalists that truly have an earth-based context in their understanding of Unitarian Universalism, share about rituals with water and the element of water? What if you wove through the entire year looking up to April and Earth Day as continuing to celebrate this sense of water in gathering and even saving some water for the fall if you should go and do a cleanup effort? Again, just a couple more applications. Flower communion, really critically important in our liturgical understanding and narrative of who we are historically as well as today. Why not make that more of a multi-generational embodied experience? In my home congregation, it was often the children, very sweet and tender, going up to adults and offering flowers. What about making this a connecting moment? Perhaps the adults are handing out flowers to the children and youth and making sure that they ask their name or that they know their names, and doing a passing of the peace in essence with this flower communion of peace and love be with you, but making sure that naming, you can tell, I think this is really important. If we don't know who we are, we're truly not in community. And then finally, with that water communion piece, with that flower communion piece, make sure somebody knows the narrative. Again, this is an anchor narrative in our tradition, but a lot of folk just lift up Reverend Norbert Chapek, but make sure that Maya Chapek is named because she was the person who brought the ritual to America. And then I'd ask Natalie to share this idea about some sort of bingo.
Thanks, Nancy. And can I take this moment of privilege while I'm unmuted to say one thing about about the Rue?
Oh, yes, of course.
I just wanted to add on that when Kathy was mentioning the so what and making meaning in that way. I just wanted to mention that that's really what we are talking about when we're talking about narrative building. It's not just collecting these important stories, and it's not just adding our own stories. It's the process of making meaning and then sharing that with each other. So that's a really key piece, that that is a thread that goes through all of what we're saying today. So I just wanted to say that. And then UU Bingo. So this is one of my favorite activities. This can be done at a closed event. So like by closed, I don't mean closed in participation. I mean a set amount of time, a fellowship event, the beginning of a justice making Saturday, an in gathering, anytime when you have a group of folks. And it's a bingo card. You can create your own. And the middle is always a chalice. It's your free space. It's our community that already exists. It's our gift from the folks who built our community before we got there. And each square has a descriptor in it. So someone who is a lifelong Unitarian Universalist, someone who has been coming less than a week, someone who has a really great story to tell, someone who has been a member of a different congregation. And then everyone goes around and engages in conversation with everyone at the event and has them sign the bingo card. And the goal is to get every square done, not just a bingo. And you can add prizes for this. You can add storytelling piece where at the end, if someone has signed multiple cards, tell your story about moving from congregation to congregation. Tell your story about your favorite General Assembly. Tell your story about when you were growing up in religious education. And in that way, it can be really fun community building piece and an opportunity to build and share narrative. Now, if we wanted to do this in a broader sense and not just at one event, you can transform your bingo card into a people scavenger hunt. So you can say it's going to take 2 weeks, or it's going to take the month of September, or it's going to take an entire semester. And everyone's goal is to go around and get folks to sign their scavenger hunt in the same manner that the bingo card would be. So you're looking for folks who have a particular descriptor, or maybe you want to find out what someone's favorite hymn is, or what someone's favorite reading is, or what someone's favorite sermon that they've ever heard is, and then they can sign next to that. And again, in that way, it's just an elongated way of community building, participating in a fellowship event, a really fun multi-generational way of getting folks to talk to each other.
Thank you, Natalie, and thank you all so much for your ministry in our congregations, and we look forward to engaging with you further. Never hesitate to reach out. We have lots of religious education learning opportunities in the Southern region, which are open to folks from all over. So many blessings, and thank you so much.